Hey guys, what is up? Sam or Scorpiola here, bringing you guys a quick and simple video being the ultimate strategy to get you guys through the Ancient Evil New Zombies map boss fight as easy as possible. This boss fight is insane, it's awesome, and I've got a bunch of tips in here, some of which I know even the pro players out here wouldn't have heard of, and this is going to make this boss fight as easy as possible for you to beat. So we're going to go through everything from class, a few little tips and tricks, and then we're going to go through each phase of the boss fight. So yeah, enjoy the video. So quickly going over your setup here, there's just a few simple things I'd recommend. I'd recommend Stamina, Quick Revive and Dying Wish, all those perks that you want to be running for the speed, the quicker revive time in this boss fight, and Dying Wish is just obviously a crutch perk. And for your modifier, I would actually recommend Time Slip because your special weapon is going to be so important in this boss fight, and that will make it recharge a lot faster. In terms of weapons that you want to be taking into this fight, I'd recommend each of the players have one of the gauntlet weapons. Make sure somebody has the Hand of Gaia because it's one of the most powerful by far. And I'd also advise that if possible from the box, you try and get at least 2 Hellion Salvo launchers. These things can destroy both the bosses and it will generally make your time significantly easier in this fight. For your specialist, everyone needs to be running the Scepter in co-op 100% just for the reviving with perks. It's too important. Chakrams or the Hammer are significantly better options if you're playing solo, so the Scepter's just pretty much useless solo. Grenades, obviously Wraithfires as always. You're going to want to get as many sets of Homunculus as possible as well before going into this fight. Remember, if you have the Pegasus strike, before you actually go through the portal to enter the boss fight, make sure to get rid of them for Homunculus if you possibly can, because you will actually lose them when you go into the fight. Also, if you're wanting to run any consumable elixirs, I'd recommend something like Max Ammos, Carpenter's or Alchemical. Anything that's going to get you more ammo or repair your shield is going to be a good option for this fight, because decent chance you're losing your shield and ammo can become kind of scarce at certain times. It's more of a just in case kind of measure, but I would definitely recommend it. So going over a few little tips initially first for this boss fight is to make sure every time that you are reviving a downed player, you are doing it with the Scepter of Ra, because you do not want any of your team to be losing any of their perks. They can come in too important in this fight, so make sure you're using that Scepter, and actually charging your Scepter will never be an issue in this fight, because you can actually recharge it through the small firebolts that the zombie warlord, boss gladiator kind of guy, will shoot down from the top of that mountain. Basically, those little bolts of fire that you'll see scattered around the arena that you probably have been thinking all along are actually a hazard, you will find out that if you walk through them, it will actually charge up your special meter very rapidly, even faster with the time slip modifier. So I would 100% recommend you going through them, but you need to be very careful about it, because they will also damage you very quickly if you stand on them for too long. So make sure to go through them in short bursts and not with too many zombies around. Make sure that your teammate are covering you as you're doing this, just to make sure that you don't be taking any downs in the process. So as soon as you go into the boss fight, you will go through an intro phase before you actually face any bosses. This boss fight is broken up into 3 islands which are linked by sets of jump pads that have a short cooldown between uses. When you spawn in on the main island, you must kill one of the 6 armed mini-bosses that will be standing in front of you. I'd recommend you use the Hellion Salvo to do this, whilst also trying to conserve ammo, because that Hellion Salvo is going to be very important for killing the main boss by itself. And then you and your team must travel between the other 2 islands using those jump pads to kill the mini bosses that will spawn there along with any of the zombies. If you're 4 player, I would actually recommend you send 2 players onto each island to get it done a little bit faster, because it's really not too easy. Basically all you're going to have to do is focus on the boss. So going into our actual first main boss phase is actually going to be a fight against the Dark Pegasus. This is something that can be done very easily using that launcher, which is the reason I recommend it to you guys. Basically, the way this fight will work is the Pegasus will be flying around you, and you need to shoot him down, and once you've done enough damage to him, he will crash down to one of the islands, and you'll actually have to go to him and deal damage to him using, ideally, your special weapon really will do the most damage. With your Scepter of Ra, I'd recommend you pull it out when you get him knocked down, and just start meleeing him him very close up, make sure the hit markers are coming up. That is by far the way you're going to get the most damage onto him, as the gauntlets don't seem to in fact damage him whatsoever whilst he's in this down stage. Now what makes the Hellion so good is whilst the Pegasus is actually mid-flight, flying very quickly around, you can still actually lock onto him and the launcher will actually follow him and bring him down to the ground, which is incredibly cool. I would say under 10 shots of this can actually knock him to the ground, so if you've got more than one of these, you're going to be taking him down mad fast. I'd recommend you get that thing 4 times pat before you go in there to make sure its damage is at the absolute maximum. As I said, once he's down on the ground, you just want to do as much damage to him with the special, and then once the stun will in fact wear off, you'll see the glowing effect go off of him, and he'll start to take off, and the island that he was downed on will become electrified, where you'll take a huge amount of damage by staying on there. So make sure you quickly move to an island before this wears off. The Pegasus also has another ability where he can shoot rows of electrified fire bolts down the centre of an island that will take you for damage when running through them. So try to avoid going through these as much as possible. However, they don't deal an extreme amount of damage if you're quickly running through them. Just make sure you're not trying to cross over when you're overrun by zombies. It can be a helpful tip, since this actually prevents you crossing over different chunks of the same island. I would recommend you maybe try and leave that island, if it's possible actually at this point in the fight. Once the Pegasus has in fact been reduced to roughly half health, he will actually use an airstrike attack to destroy the forest island. You want to keep an eye out for this attack coming down and the fire starting to go on, because you'll quickly take damage on here, and if you're on the island when it's destroyed, you will be insta-killed and you'll be out of the game and you'll be put into a spectator mode. However, try not to worry too hard about if one of your teammates does in fact die, because rounds do pass very often in this fight. So just make sure the rest of your team stay calm and keep on going, and you and your team will quickly be back into the game. Now, the launch pads to the dead island, being the forest, will actually be disabled, so you don't really actually have to worry about accidentally going over to there. You just want to continue to then repeat the same process of dealing damage to him, whilst obviously you can't use the forest island. And if you do it eventually enough, you will find that the Pegasus will do the same airstrike attack as he did on the forest area with the fountain area. This is your indicator that you have in fact killed the Pegasus, since then the main boss zombie, the zombie warlord, will grab him and in fact kill him, and he will now become your main boss zombie. However, for this phase you're obviously going to be locked down to just the columns area, so this is where it gets a little bit tricky because it's a very tight area. Expect to take some downs, but you just need to be very careful. Hellions, and in fact we're going to go over exactly how this next phase works. In this small area you'll be frequently put up against the 6-armed bosses and the Blight Father, which you should be easily able to knock down with that salvo launcher. This boss will frequently shoot down the same firebolts as we saw earlier, which will allow you to keep your specialist up, so make sure that you are using them if you do have to use your specialist to revive a player. The Warbled Fight can be beaten in an extremely similar way to the Pegasus. However, he will come down to your island to attack you every so often, at which point I would recommend that if any of your team have a homunculus, they throw it down if possible, to make sure that the people with the launcher can get as many shots on him as possible. Once you've done enough damage, just like the Pegasus, he'll be knocked down into a stun state. However, at this point I would recommend that the people who don't have launchers use their special weapon melee, just as you did with the Pegasus. But if you do have a launcher, locking onto him whilst he's down with that launcher can also be very helpful for this chunk of the fight to do plenty more damage. After repeating this enough times, you will see the boss will eventually actually fall to his knees and begin to speak. This will tell you that the boss is beaten, and then eventually he will die and drop a key for you that you'll be able to pick up. Afterwards, you just need to wait a few seconds and the cutscene will begin to play. So at this point, congratulations, you have successfully beaten this boss fight. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and it's helped you out a bit. I wanted to bring you guys the ultimate strategy to make sure you guys can get this fight done as easy as possible, because I know some people have been having some trouble with it. If anyone is still needing this fight done, then make sure to drop your PSNs in the description and I'll be more than happy to help any subscribers through this Easter egg. But that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe. I'll see you on more Black Ops 4 Zombies videos. Bye!